So after the run up to the budget and all the leaks and U-turns, we finally heard Rachel Reeves' budget yesterday, 26th of November. She's introduced further stealth tax measures which will increase the burden on individuals and owner-managed businesses, in fact all businesses. The budget is reported to raise 26 billion in tax by 29/30. And there were lots of spending included in the budget, including increases in benefits, removing the 2-child cap on benefits, and guaranteeing an increase in state pension. The majority of the tax changes are going to impact people that work hard, save for retirement, and save for a rainy day, and have invested in property along the way. And also higher earners will feel it most. She said that she was asking everybody to contribute, and she certainly has to an extent. So I've got my top 10 changes, which I think are going to be most relevant to the clients we act for. And the first one is the income tax thresholds have been frozen until 2031. They were originally frozen in April 2021, but she's now maintaining those thresholds for 10 years, despite wages and inflation increasing substantially over that period of time. This is going to pull more and more people into paying tax and also falling into those higher rate tax brackets. Pensioners will be paying tax that probably wouldn't usually, and students are even going to end up having to pay back their student loans when still earning minimum wage. So point number 2 was an increase in tax for savers, property investors and shareholders. She's increased tax on dividends by 2% for dividends falling into the basic and higher rate band, but no adjustment to the additional rate. And she's also increased tax on savings from April 27 by 2% and tax on property income by 2% from April 27. 3 is changes to ISAs, capping the amount that individuals can invest in an ISA at 65 years of age, to £12,000 for a cash ISA and £8,000 for an investment ISA. She's also changed the salary sacrifice on pensions. This is where employees are choosing to sacrifice their gross pay and pay it into a pension. Currently, there's no tax or national insurance if they pay it into pension, but from April 2029, only the first £2,000 will be exempt from national insurance, and everything over that's going to be subject to employers and employees' national insurance charges, which is going to have a big impact on people saving for their retirement. Number 4 was introduction of a high value council tax surcharge. This was widely speculated on the run up to the budget due to various press releases, etc. Introduction of a mansion tax. However, with effect from April 28, homeowners, not the occupiers, so this again could have an impact on landlords of property in England worth more than £2 million will be subject to an annual surcharge of between £2,500 and £7,500, depending on the value of the property. The highest amount being payable on properties worth over £5 million. It's also going to increase these charges in line with inflation from 29/30. So this is a real blow to people living in London who might have property of a substantial value, but not necessarily the disposable income to pay or accommodate the cost. It's also going to be quite an administrative burden for local government because all properties are going to have to be valued. So there's going to be some challenges with the introduction of this, and whether it's going to bring in as much as the government expect will remain to be seen. Number 5, this is not so popular with those with electric vehicles. This is an excise duty that's coming in from April 28. Proposals that she's introducing is attempt to fill the gap on fuel duty. So at the moment, there's not as much petrol and diesel being sold, clearly, because people are running around in electric cars. And so the intention is to charge 3p per mile for electric vehicles as an additional excise duty or road tax, and 1.5p per mile for hybrid vehicles. It does feel like this is going to be a minefield, to be honest, of administration to implement and police, as the onus is going to be on the motorist to estimate the mileage at the start of the year and pay on an estimate, and then have their mileage checked annually at an approved centre. So it'll be done through the MOT process, but what about those cars that are newer and don't require an MOT? Essentially, what the documents say is that they will have to go to an approved centre and have the mileage checked annually, and then there'll be a reconciling payment. And then there's also the challenges if you sell your car partway through the year, or you're running around in a leased vehicle, who is responsible for that? There are consultations until March 26 on this to put your views forward. So number 6, from April 26, there are changes for non-resident taxpayers who receive income from the UK, including dividends and other sources of income like rental income. There'll be a removing of the tax credit on dividends, which non-residents currently get, and this is to bring treatment in line with UK individuals when they have other UK source income, such as property. For non-residents, there's also a change to stop them paying voluntary Class 2 national insurance, and so therefore remaining entitled to a state pension when they're not living in the UK. Tightening up the rules about non-residents having access to state pension is the aim of this change. Number 7, to encourage investment in business in the UK, there have been some welcome changes announced to enterprise investment schemes and venture capital trusts. And from April 2026, increases to annual, lifetime and gross asset limits for companies that are receiving investment under EIS and VCT schemes are to be introduced. However, downside to that one is there is a reduction in the income tax relief that can be claimed for an individual on a VCT investment, down to 20% from the current rate of 30%. Number 8, there's a further welcome change to encourage businesses to reward and attract employees using the advantages of an Enterprise Management Incentive Scheme, or EMI. And for EMI contracts granted after the 6th of April 2026, the size of the companies that can use EMI as an incentive scheme has been widened, making this available to much larger businesses, which will assist them with employee attraction and retention and to scale and grow the businesses. That's definitely a welcome change. They're also increasing the value of the options that a company can grant from £3 million to £6 million. Number 9, there was further increases announced to national minimum wage to increase again from April 2026, and therefore increasing the cost to employing workers and narrowing the gap between unskilled workers compared to a skilled worker. This is going to be a further strain on businesses, but obviously will help those lower paid workers out with the cost of living crisis. Number 10, so there's changes to capital gains tax when business owners sell their business to an employee ownership trust. Currently, if a business sells shares to an EOT, then there is zero capital gains tax payable. However, from budget day, so from the 26th of November 2025, 50% of that capital gain on the disposal to the trustees of an EOT is going to be treated as a chargeable gain and subject to capital gains tax. Previously, this was 100% free of tax. The remaining 50% of that gain is not chargeable, but it's held over, and then when the trustees sell the shares in the company, that gain then crystallises. In addition to that, there was a welcome change to inheritance tax, in the sense that £1 million of business and agricultural property relief is now transferable between spouses. This change was made in the last budget, where she limited the amount of business property relief and agricultural property relief. However, it wasn't transferable. So this is a welcome measure and certainly a requirement, so that effective planning can be done for inheritance tax between husband and wife. So from the report issued by the OBR, they have downgraded the economic growth, which possibly suggests that these measures announced are going to weigh down the economic growth in the future, and also perhaps individuals' disposable income over time might decrease. And additionally, for landlords, again, this will mean that rents possibly need to go up to pay the further tax. Increases in national minimum wage and further NIC costs on pensions will add to the burden for business owners, resulting in price increases. So what do you do now? Well, for business owners, with the increases in tax on dividends coming in from April, now's the time to review your remuneration strategy. You should consider what impact the further increases on national minimum wage will have on your business and budget further for these costs. For property investors, again, an increase in tax on rental profits will no doubt add to the challenges that landlords face with legislative changes recently and in this sector. It's important to calculate the impact of the tax rises on your portfolio and consider how best you're going to manage these fiscal changes that this budget presents.